The new season of Gold Rush has been greatly anticipated, and it's finally here. The best moments of this new season are as golden as the previous seasons. Here are the best moments of Season 14. Episode 1, The $160 Million Gamble. The first episode of the new season, The $160 Million Gamble, begins with Parker looking for new ground. Tony is thinking of combining and expanding last year's cuts. Tony also learns that they have gained water right back on the Indian River. Rick returns after a year away, where he was recovering from his drug addiction and depression. But the best part of the episode has to be when Rick is able to convince his claim owner to let him return if he gives his camp up as collateral. This means Rick gets a second chance at turning his life around for the better. Rick then pays to rent a loader using 5 ounces of gold, but when he is setting up a water pump, he finds the suction line has gone missing and swears he'll find out who did it. The drama of the missing part causes a lot of excitement, but the matter is quickly resolved when Z finds a suction line to replace it, and they find a nugget. Episode 2, Call of the Indian River. In this episode, Tony thinks about moving the entire family down to the Indian River or continuing on the supercut. The test pan finds gold when they test the supercut. They also take a helicopter ride to look at the Indian River. The dredge is in bad shape as it is a mess, water leaks, and problems galore. The best part of the episode has to be the family deciding that they will move to the Indian River. They all sit around as a family and discuss the risks and reward of either move. However, Tony's decision is that they have all the pieces necessary to move forward and that there was no reason not to. Tony believes his goal of 6,000 ounces by the end of the year will be possible there, and so the family decides to make the move. Episode 3, Hey Parker, It's Rick. The best part of this episode is undoubtedly the moment when Morgan's loader gets a flat tire and Rick is forced to go to Parker's claim to ask for a new one. The Nest crew stands to lose $8,000 a day of gold production. Parker says they can figure out the cost later, very generously helping out Rick in his time of need. Rick is unable to haul heavy equipment at this time, but he's hired a specialist to get gear where it needs to be during the road bans. This specialist plans to use his $1 million custom wheeler to move the equipment legally over the roads. Episode 4, Free Agent. This episode's best moment has to be when Tony realizes that he needs to build a bridge to get across the small creek that runs through his claim. They come up with a plan to use a 20-foot culvert and cover it in tailings to create a road that will allow his crew to access the cuts on the other side. It's a very exciting and scary scene where Tony remains standing on the old broken bridge that used to be over the creek as they work to remove it from their path. Seeing the creek's current increase with time makes it all the more urgent that they build their bridge. Episode 5, Up in Smoke. In the 5th episode, the best part had to be when Rick's equipment went up in smoke. The new pump weighs over 2.5 tons and costs $200,000. This pump being damaged would end the whole operation for Rick and end his season entirely. Rick carefully lifts and places the new pump by the water, and the crew gathers around to see whether their time ends here. Rick bursts into relieved laughter as the pump fires up, operations back on track. The 3 days it took to get the pump in cost him $20,000. However, things turn for the worst when the pump begins to malfunction. Rick realizes that he forgot to refuel it and plays this off as him testing the crew and laughs. Episode 6, Down, but Not Out. In the 6th episode of the season, the best parts surround Parker. The Slucifer starts cleaning out the pay dirt, and 7 weeks in, Parker is hopeful that this is the big moment where he recoups the money he's invested into this claim. This big moment also coincides with his meeting with Fred, where Fred is asking Parker for some ground. Parker thinks over how to phrase his advice, that if he can't make it work, he should move on. When Parker denies Fred help finding economical ground, Fred then asks if he has any positions open on the crew. The entire meeting is rife with discomfort as Parker tries to carefully dodge around Fred's requests. As Parker waves goodbye to Fred, he reflects on how hard it is to give something you've invested so much time and money into behind. Episode 7 to 50-ounce Ultimatum. The best part of the 7th episode is when Rick speaks to the claim owner who has come to collect on the lien on his camp. Rick doesn't have the money ready, and the owner is very clearly disappointed and worried. Rick then asks for an extension to the end of the week to get the 50 ounces of gold, to which the owner agrees. It's explained in the episode that Rick has mined over 90 ounces of gold, but most of it has gone right back to operation costs. Rick's crew starts feeling the pressure to get the rest of the gold quickly, and it isn't helped when the wash plant blows its belt, halting operations. Buzz immediately starts searching for belts that they can repurpose, fruitlessly searching storage, when he spots an old wash plant sitting abandoned in shrubs and trees, rusted and abandoned. Buzz examines the belts on the old machine and decides they'll have to make it work. They decide to compress the inside of the big red wash machine to make the repurposed belts fit. The machine starts up and everyone sighs in relief, making up the money they need by the end of the week. However, Rick acknowledges that after paying the 50 ounces, they are back to zero. Episode 8, Last Ditch Gold. In the 8th episode, the best part happens when Tony is given the green light to mine the Indian River claim. So far, Tony has had only losses this season, getting the Indian River shut down, broken down equipment, and worst of all, no gold. However, this phone call has the power to turn everything around. He isn't allowed to strip more ground, but he is free to sluice what he has already opened. Tony's 15 acres of sluicing ground is set up in a closed circuit where he continually processes the same water over and over. 8 weeks into the season, they are finally sluicing the Indian River pay dirt. Of course, as soon as they begin, they are forced to shut down the power. The tailing diverter broke off due to the welder's error in not securing it properly, allowing rocks to knock it off and into the water. The beat crew doesn't let this mistake discourage them, and by the end of 22 hours, running Monica's 200-yard-an-hour wash plant, they have found 68.88 ounces. Episode 9, Pivot. In the 9th episode of the season, Parker has opened ground to mine the land leased from Ken and Stewart. The best part of the episode begins when Tyson needs to move the wash plant to the El Dorado cut by the end of the week, stressing him out because of the heavy workload. Tyson needs to get everything running in 24 hours, so he teams up with Evan, who has never moved a wash plant. All of this culminates into a very dramatic moment, where the high-strung Tyson is called to a rescue mission when Liam wraps a loader around a tree miles away from Tyson's operation. However, this gives Evan the opportunity to operate the excavator on his own. The rescue of the loader is tense, but after an hour, the only thing damaged is a mudguard, and Tyson is back to the site, where newbie Evan managed to keep everything running smoothly. Episode 10, Parker's runaway claim. The best part of this episode is when Parker comes across a broken bridge and talks with Mitch about what they should do next. To not cross the creek would cost money, but focusing on fixing the washed-away bridge is a lot of time wasted on sluicing an area that may or may not pan out for the team. This moment is important on a deeper level, as it illustrates the loyalty and confidence Parker has in Mitch to be able to express the stress he's under trying to make the best decision forward. Mitch is an excellent sounding board. He listens to Parker's concerns and then lists his own fears over the team's timeline not being met, as they have countless tasks to get done. However, once Parker decides on a path forward, Mitch focuses on how to best accomplish what they need and get moving to the virgin ground they want to mine. Episode 11, Frankendozer. Episode 11's best part is surrounding the titular Frankendozer. It all begins when Parker starts explaining all the problems stemming from Dominion, which is bleeding money. He needs to make up a lot of money quickly and has joined the crew in prepping the site himself. Mitch goes to speak with Parker about needing a big machine to remove a ton of mud from Australia Creek so they can start sluicing. However, when they start evaluating their options, they realize they don't have a machine big enough to complete the task. They begin speculating that they could resurrect a dead dozer that's big enough. The problem with this is that Jordan must take parts from 3 different dozers to create one giant Frankendozer. They have a lot of money riding on this makeshift creation, so the pressure to succeed is on Jordan and his machine. The Schnabel crew uses the newly assembled 110-ton Frankendozer to move piles of mud and dirt until the beast breaks down from a clogged filter. This causes Mitch to run over and climb into the belly of the Frankendozer. The suspense rises as Mitch takes out the filter and examines carefully what it contains. Any sign on metal in the filter would indicate a great failure in the Frankendozer, and it would be forced into retirement once more. But to the great luck of Team Schnabel, all it took was a change in filter, and the Frankendozer was back in business. With 2 dozers running, they were on track to clearing the way for Australia Creek. At this point in the season, Parker has reached just over 1,000 ounces of his goal for 5,000 ounces to break even on this operation. Episode 12, Money Pit Payday. The best part of Money Pit Payday is when Buzz saves the day. The Nest crew are having a problem with Rocky, the wash plant, as it's at a standstill. Buzz is on trial to be foreman, so for him fixing this issue is more important than just getting the workday started. Buzz simply tells Rick that he's going to get the wash plant going, and Rick walks off confident that the issue will be solved. Buzz thinks through every piece of the plant, inspecting the generator and speculating that the problem is too much power going to the circuit breaker. As we go through the issues on the site, Buzz also divulges that his wife has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, giving his determination in solving the problems with the wash plant a deeper level of emotion. Buzz says he needs to help Rick meet his 1,000-ounce goal, and he needs to be able to provide for his ailing wife. Buzz tries to diagnose the problem and decides that he needs to be more innovative in his approach, so he decides to connect the generator directly to Rocky's fuses, powering the motor of the wash plant. The plan is a success. Buzz saves the day and they start sluicing. Episode 13, Parker Comes Alive. The 13th episode of the season. The best part of this episode is seeing Parker's operation running at full speed toward his goal of 5,000 ounces. Big Red is finally sluicing the money pit. He will finally be able to determine whether his big gamble at the beginning of the season will pay off. Parker explains that with 2 plants running, the crew has a real shot of meeting their goal. The episode's suspense spikes when Doomit notices that Slucifer has a problem, showing that one side of the machine has far less gold than the other, meaning they have lost a lot of gold. A devastating blow to the operation. As they inspect the plant, they realize that the wash plant is not sitting straight, and the unevenness is causing the machine to lose a ton of gold to the water. The episode ends with them measuring how much gold Big Red has made in a week. For Dominion to be worth it, they will need around 230 ounces. The true count ends up being 410.55 ounces. Episode 14, Desperate Cry for Help. The best part of the latest episode has to be when Rick receives an alert on his phone about wildfires in the area. This is a surprising and potentially terrifying piece of news. So far, the crews have all faced problems that are in general man-made, or inconvenient and time-consuming, like fixing bridges that have been swept away by small creeks. The sudden shift to man versus nature was startling. At the time of this episode, Canada was experiencing its worst wildfire season on record. Morgan smells smoke coming out of her truck, and Ryan explains to her that her truck had been shooting out fuel. A chilling realization when you put together the danger of a wildfire combined with the combustible rock truck narrowly avoiding starting a new blaze. Subscribe to the channel if you still haven't. What did you think of our best moments of Season 14? Of all the golden moments in the new season, we did our best to pull out the best parts. Did we miss any? But you did. There is a discovery the old Rush team has made that nobody is talking about yet, and it's the biggest one so far. It has sparked immense interest among gold and mystery treasure enthusiasts alike. Tony Beets has just revealed our brand new Gold Rush Special Edition phone cases, which are on sale for the new year right at this moment. Discover them yourself by clicking on your screen right now, or check the first link in the description.